Hi, this is BK Black Krishna for manforwars.com, where I'm promoting polite patriotism to help nice ladies and gents teach kids, look, talk, and feel great, and locally discuss and share lots of great info they find online, offline, as nice, helpful, respectful people talking nicely about making better places to live where they live. So check out manforwars.com for more, lots of podcasts, YouTube videos, and so on that people enjoy, and lots of typing to strangers, and yet less locally connecting, and I've figured out some reasons why and what to do about it at manforwars.com. But this video is called NBA Playoffs 2019, Raptors versus Sixers Game 4 Prep. Hashtag Flee the North versus Simple Keys to Win. And picked up that Flee the North kind of hashtag from a sports commentator. And it's possible that that Kawhi Leonard could flee the North and that other people could flee the North in a huge rebuild if this Toronto Raptors season doesn't go well, if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. And yet, it's a great team to cheer for, a great group of guys, relatively drama-free, a great coach, Nick Nurse, does well professionally, and is really good with the media and fans, and the players, a lot of fun to cheer for. So if you're invested, I see why you've invested, no matter how the season turns out. You can't say it hasn't been a good time. Go Raps. Hope they do well. And on that, I've got 6 keys representing the 6 on what the Raptors can do to win. Some simple keys to win versus flee the North. And so the first key is, and this is based on games 1, 2, and especially the awful blowout in game 3 in Philadelphia, where the Sixers just beat the crap out of the Raptors. What a beating it was. And so these are some ways to help deal with that. So key number 1 is for Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol, 2 of the highest paid players, 2 of the veteran leaders, 2 guys in their early to mid 30s who are at the tail ends of their careers. These are the guys that have to step up both from a playing role and from a leadership role. And so the best thing that I've seen when it comes to making sure they can do that for the entire game, in good times and in bad, is to get them going early. Get them going early. Get Kyle a couple of layups. Get Kyle a couple of mid-range shots. Get Kyle a couple of drives and spazzing outs and fouls. Get Marc Gasol a couple of quick, easy looks, a couple of duck-ins, a couple of quick little turnaround jumpers or hook shots, or just straight-up mid-range shots. Get them going early. Because if you've ever played basketball, especially, probably other sports the same, I've played a few, but certainly with basketball, you can't talk unless you can play. And that's from kids playing basketball, pickup basketball, college basketball, pro basketball. It's all the same. If you can't play, you got nothing to say, because you're just going to piss people off. It'll fall on dead ears. And that's also why it's hard for even guys like LeBron freaking James to lead a team when he's injured. You have to actually be playing and producing to have the best results with your teammates. And so what will happen is if Kyle doesn't get going early, or Mark doesn't get going early, then they will fashionably shut down a bit. They will sort of, you've seen Kyle and he's all hooded up and he's got the thing over his face or whatever. Sometimes he'll do that when they're playing well. He's just trying to keep warm. But he'll have less and less to say. And he'll have less and less of a come on, let's go, not just to himself, but to the rest of the team. And also, Mark will have less to say, because if you're not playing well, then you shouldn't be talking that much. And yet, who else on the Raptors is going to talk that much? Kawhi generally doesn't talk that much. He's certainly communicative, and he's not a stone. And if you watch him on Serge Ibaka's cooking show, you get a great idea of the fact that he actually has a great personality, and yet he's still more of a quieter guy, a more reserved guy. He's not the typical rah, 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 in-your-face, Draymond Green type, let's go kind of guy. And Kyle Lowry is more that guy, and Marc Gasol can be more that guy as veteran leaders on this team, a good 5 years older than Kawhi and almost 10 years older than, say, their second or third best player, Pascal Siakam. So you got to get him going early. Because what I saw happening in Game 3 of the 76ers' nearly 20-point beatdown of the Raptors is there was a bunch of guys who were kind of pissed off with how they were playing. They were kind of drifting apart. You don't want to go close to a guy who's pissed off, or whatever. You don't want to antagonize him further. You don't feel like being close to somebody who's failing. And there weren't a lot of Raptors players saying, come on, let's go. We got this. They've been up by 10 points, 15 points for most of the game, but we're keeping it under 10 points for parts of the game in the third quarter. We can do this. I didn't see in watching the game last night any signs of that on the team. Yo, let's get together. Bring it in. Yo, let's get together. Yo, touches. Steve Nash used to talk about how important touches were, touching each other. High fives, casual high fives, pats on the shoulder, pats on the butt, pats on the back, pats on the head. There wasn't a lot of that going on this Raptors team, who generally seem to be a bunch of good guys. But again, they didn't have that type of chemistry. And that can be led by Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol. And everybody else can follow with that type of leadership if they lead. But if Norm Powell or Fred VanVleet or one of those guys wants to freak out, guys, man up, we got to do this, let's go, we're so close. It's weird because they're not some of the senior veteran leaders. So get Kyle and Mark going early so they can talk throughout the game and talk late in good times and in bad and rally the whole team around them. Kawhi seemed to try and lead with his sort of get out of my way, clear out, I will, put us on my back. But there was less of that, high fives, fist bumps, pats on the head, pats on the butt type stuff. And you need more of that to keep people engaged. And so Kyle and Mark have to do that, and they can get going early. Defenses don't play as hard early. They haven't figured out what you're doing or what they're doing as much early. So getting them a couple of early scores is a really big key to winning. So that's key number one. The second key to this is shoot early in the clock, get more opportunities, and rely on your defense. Now, the best Raptors teams do move the ball, but they also confidently take shots. And the reason the Raptors bench was so good, actually the bench has been bad this year, but the reason the Raptors depth is so celebrated in general is because they give all of their guys confidence to shoot. And part of that confidence to shoot when it comes to the best Raptors is they know they can get stops on the defensive end. They know they can get stops there. They know that, all right, Fred, shoot your shot. Norm, shoot your shot. Pascal, shoot your shot. Patrick McCaw, take a three. We know you can make them. Jeremy Lin, go ahead, fire him up. We'll see if you're hot tonight. Maybe we'll keep playing you. Maybe we won't. Jody Meeks, you're a veteran. If it's your shot, shoot it. You'll get more crap for not shooting it than you would for shooting it. So shoot your shot because they know they can get the game back on the defensive end. Everybody confidently shoots the shot, make or miss, don't worry about it. You were supposed to take that shot, right? If it's one of the shots you're supposed to take, take it. Take it. And get the hell back and D up. Everybody, man, 1 through 8 or 1 through 15, D up. That's your main strength. So shoot. Chris Boucher, wants to come in, 7-footer, super skinny, hardly ever plays. Shoot your threes. Go ahead. But then get the hell back there and play some goddamn D. Because if we're going to let you have the freedom to shoot, then you got to D up. And that's the best Raptors. The bad Raptors tend to overpass the ball. This is a good shot, but I could get him a better shot. Then you're taking shots late in the clock, or you're taking shots worse than the ones that you could have got. And there's a lot more pressure on each of those shots to sort of go in. So you're not playing as freely. If you're Fred VanVleet, you're like, all right, there's already been 5-6 passes. I guess I got to take this three, even though I'm barely 6 feet tall, maybe 5'10", 6 feet, and I got 6'7", 6'8" Tobias Harris or Jimmy Butler or 6'10" Ben Simmons near me, or even 6'3", 6'4" JJ Redick near me when he's only 5'10", 6 feet. So, it's here. I gotta put one up at some point. Bang, blocked shots. Game 3 had a couple of bad blocked shots, and the whole team just puts way too much pressure on themselves after that much ball movement to get a good shot. And if that shot doesn't go down, it takes some of the energy out of your team, and it takes some of the energy out of your defense. So shoot earlier in the clock. Just take your shot, get confidence in the fact that your team wants you shooting, and then get the hell back and play some defense and counter the fact that you can get some stops on that end against a bigger Philly team, possibly a little slower in the aggregate, but certainly a larger Philly team, but you can still get some shots. And so if they play that way and they shoot earlier in the clock, they'll have more confidence in the fact that they're doing the right thing and then running back and playing great defense and have the energy for it, as opposed to feeling really bad about the few shots they take and the few shots they make and having that affect their energy on the defensive end. So that's point number 2 as a simple key to win. Point number 3 is play the bench early. Play the bench early in the game, right? Give them a couple of minutes earlier in the game. Give them a couple of minutes, maybe in the first quarter, maybe halfway through the first quarter. Mix it up a little bit. Give them a couple of minutes. Defenses aren't as set, aren't as locked into what you're doing, what they're doing, and vice versa. You can give the starters a chance to get some valuable rest and think about what they're doing and come in a little fresher to finish out the first or second quarters. You can see who's hot and who's not when it comes to the bench. And you also, since the bench has been crapped on, and I'm sure they catch some of the media out there or their friends or family telling them what the media is saying and so on, because the Raptors bench has been crapped on all year and certainly in these playoffs, there's a lot less pressure if you come in early in the game, whether the Raps are up by a little bit or down by a little bit or whatever, than there is later on when you're really worried about giving the starters leads away. Right? So if you're coming in at the end of the half or towards the end of the first half and the starters have built a 10-point lead, you really are worried about keeping that lead, and you're probably playing a little tighter when it comes to offense. So your body's a little tighter, so your shot's a little off. And then you're always worried about defense. You might be scrambling too much, fouling too much. You might be biting on pump fakes and so on because you don't want to get beat by an open look. And so before the bench has to worry about giving up some of the hard work and good work of the starters, possibly a lead or possibly some good play even if you're down, bring them in early and see what you got and give them some confidence and give the starters more normal rest. So if they have to play 35, 40 minutes, you can give them that 8-10 minute break towards the beginning, more close towards the beginning of the game. It is risky because you could give up, a few points, but that's also why I would say get the bench to play at a slower pace, a half-court pace. So I know the Raptors are a great transition team, and they've got some decent shooters. Sometimes they're not making their shots, so that sucks. So maybe they're not that decent. But they've got better shooters than they have playmakers or one-on-one playmakers. On Philly, you've got Joel Embiid. He can pretty much do it, and if his outside shots going, then a lot of times you got to bite in his pump fake, and he can drive. You got Tobias Harris, 6'8", 6'9" guy who can also drive, sort of small forward, power forward. You got 6'7" Jimmy Butler. You got 6'10" Ben Simmons, who can't shoot that well, but he can certainly drive fast, and he's a good athlete. And if he gets close enough to the rim, he can pop a little push shot in there or whatever, or a little layup, or make a great play for somebody. And you've got J.J. Redick, great shooter, but all-around heady basketball player. And each of these guys, plus some members of their bench, Mike Scott, James Ennis, and others, can all make plays. They're better playmakers. The Raps have better shooters, but not a lot of great one-on-one individual playmakers. And so to avoid, you probably won't score as much this way, but to avoid giving up leads, I would recommend Nick Nurse has his bench play slow. Play slow half court. Dump it into Ibaka. Ibaka draws the double. Kick it back out to Van Vliet or Norman Powell. Dump it into Ibaka. Kick it back out. Slowly move the pieces around. Just make some conservative passes. Eat up more of the 24-second shot clock. So if they can do that on offense and then, play some pretty good defense, then if the bench comes in for 2 minutes here and there, they're not going to give up a 15-2 or a 21-4 or whatever beatdown lead. At most, if they play slow, they might, lose the lead, lose 5 points off the lead, or 10 points off the lead. Or if the Raptors get lucky, possibly not lose a lead at all, or not, lose the hard work the starters have done at all, but actually gain off some of that and do a good job maintaining what's been done so far, or possibly finding some good opportunities to sort of either cut a deficit down or increase a lead a little bit. But ultimately, because of the way they've been playing, because the playoffs are about making adjustments, get the bench to play slower as part of this process. So Play them earlier, play them slower, use fewer possessions. You only have a half a dozen times to shoot as opposed to a dozen when you're playing fast and in transition. But that means they probably have closer to only a half a dozen times to shoot as opposed to a dozen times to shoot. And when you're typically getting outscored, it's better to only get outscored by less than more. So that's key number 3. Key number 4 against this larger, but at times possibly slower Philly team is take one step back on all your shots. Take one step back, right? Even Kawhi Leonard, averaging 35, 40 points a game in this 3-game series so far. He is relying on fadeaways. He is relying on pull-up jumpers. And what he's doing is he's making sure he gets that space away from the bigger, stronger, longer, possibly a bit slower, but they're still pretty fast and athletic too, Philly defenders. So for guys like Fred VanVleet and Danny Green, you're used to shooting in the regular season relatively uncontested or sometimes even contested 3-point shots and pull-up jumpers. But in the playoffs, can't do that. Everybody plays hard in the playoffs. Regular season, not so much. And if you are going to play hard, you're going to play hard more on offense because your numbers for the regular season determine whether you get $5 million or $10 million a year as part of your contract. So people play harder on offense, but not so much on defense in the regular season. And on defense, everything's a bit closer. If you play basketball and when people really want to lock you up, it can be a real pain in the butt. Whereas typically in a free-flowing pickup game, people don't play that hard and don't try and face guard you or give you a full court press on defense. But when the game gets tight, it's a hell of a lot harder to get anything done. So for Fred, for Danny, for Norm, you're used to shooting from 22, 23 feet. Time to shoot from 23, 24 feet. Just move it a step back. Fred VanVleet, move it a step back. Danny Green, move it a step back. Don't let them contest you as easily with their speed, which is decent, but not their bigger strength than the smaller Raptors, arguably. Although it's an argument. But if you're going to have any strength over them, it'll be your speed over their length. And so move a step back to take your shot. For Pascal Siakam against Joel Embiid in the post, or even Greg Monroe or anybody else, you don't have a good mid-range jumper yet. You don't have a good mid-range jumper. You don't have a good straight up, you're going to play me to shoot from 15 feet away? I will take a perfect, Larry Bird-esque mid-range jumper and nail it in your face. He doesn't have that. He's got a decent corner 3 where if he has the time and he has got the right arc and he has the gooseneck on his wrist, then he can hit those corner 3s pretty good, and they look really good. And his mechanics are decent, but he hasn't developed because it's seen in the regular season as a bad shot. Although in the playoffs, as we've seen with all the series, mid-range jumpers are a great shot because everything else is very, very tightly contested. Layups, tightly contested. 3-pointers, tightly contested. So what are you going to do? They're running you off the 3-point line. They're clogging the paint so you can't hit a layup. Sometimes you got to manufacture a 12, 15-foot jumper. So you do need the mid-range shot. Now, Siakam doesn't have that, but Siakam has a good push shot. He's got a good push floater where in the regular season or even in the playoffs, if he gets close to the rim, say 10 feet from the rim, he doesn't do a straight-up jumper, but he does a little push, a little, shot put, a good, 5, 10 feet from the basket. So for Siakam, I recommend, even with 7'3", 300-pound Joel Embiid there, if you go all the way in, he's got the length to block you, and he's fairly quick for a guy that size, and he's got good instincts as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year he's healthy and in his prime. But because he's playing you for that mid-range jumper and he's trying to break your confidence, or the Philly team is trying to break your confidence by forcing you to take and miss those. Don't take and miss those. Act like you're going to drive in. Let Joe get into a good defensive stance to figure you're going to wiggle left or right to try and throw up a floater off the glass. And instead, just pop a little push shot over him. Pop a little push shot. Don't take the 15-footer. Take the uncontested or lightly contested 10-footer or even 5 to 8-footer. Get that little shot off. And for a guy like Norm Powell, you know, he's always got to look like a multi-threat out there. He's a great athlete. He can drive. He can pass. He's a ball handler. He often plays point guard for the Raptors on their bench units. He can score. He can dunk. Um, and so he sometimes, and the Raptors kind of get stagnant in this, where they're less confident in looking for their own shot. They're less confident. They're like, well, no, we know what the hierarchy is here. We know we've got to have a lot of ball movement. We know we've got to have a lot of dribble handoffs, and we've got to, run in circles, do a little weave at the top of the 3-point line until we get Kawhi matched up one-on-one or whatever. He's got to look more like a multi-purpose threat where every time he gets the ball, he's got the green light to do something. He's like, wait a second. I see, a guy shading over towards Danny Green because he's a dangerous three-point shooter and I can hit him with a pass. So I see, another guy who's shading over to guard the area where the guy guarding Danny Green is. That opens up a lane. Boom, gone. Drive to score or to set up somebody. So he's got to look a lot more athletic out there. And again, with more shots earlier in the shot clock and more confidence and the confidence to get back on D and get stops, you can give Norm Powell the freedom to do stuff like this. So take a step back. Just move back. We've all played basketball against guys bigger than us, and that's what you got to do, right? You make or you miss, whatever, but that's what you have to do. You can't, do your usual. If a guy's the same size, then you can post each other, or you can go in, or you can try and hit some flying layups. But I'm average height, average weight, average build, and I've played against guys that are 6'6", or a lot taller, or a lot bigger and stronger. And it's just, all right, I've got to try and use my speed to get by you. But even if I get by you and I try and lay it up, you're probably going to block it a lot of the time. So I've got to use my speed to fake like I'm trying to get by you for a layup and just make it and just get close enough to do a pull-up instead, sort of Kawhi style or Jordan style in that mid-range style where you like, bang, bang, bang. I can fly by you, but because I got you thinking about it, now I'm just going to pull up and, put one straight in or off the backboard, and that's what they've got to do. So they don't have a lot of great playmakers to sort of manufacture something from nothing. But if they're more confident shooting early, then they can take care of that, and they can do a little bit of playmaking and a little bit of taking guys one-on-one, if not with a bunch of fancy moves like say Jimmy Butler could, for example, with the idea that they're a threat to set up somebody else or score because they've been given the confidence to do so. Anybody, anytime, anywhere, it's the playoffs. Get back on defense and try and lock people down. So that's key number 4. Take a step back and then and give yourself a bit more space against Philly. Step number 5 is Coach Nick Nurse. Now, love Coach Nurse. I think he's from Iowa, and he's got a friendly, fun, folksy vibe. I'm glad he's dialed that back to a bit more of a serious vibe for the playoffs. Hated his game 1 against Orlando's suit. Big yellow and brown plaid. A friend gave it to him, and inside the plaid it had names or logos of all the teams he's coached in his long coaching career. But it just looked like crap. He looked like a clown, used car salesman Ron Burgundy. And that lack of seriousness from the top, with the sort of playoff vibe atmosphere. The Raps are in the playoffs. They're heavily favored. I think we can make the finals this year. And the coach, with his goofy suit on, and the players saw the Raps not take game 1 very seriously. They didn't play that hard. They didn't play that well. They always seemed like, well, if we keep it close, then we'll probably pull it out in the end against Orlando in the first round, in the first game, because we've got superior talent. But that's not playoff basketball. Playoff basketball is every single possession is important. Every single possession is important in every single game until it's clearly garbage time, a blowout. You're up by 20 with 3 minutes to go, or they're up by 20. Then, of course, pull the starters, put in the bench, try not to hurt anybody, just some guys in the end of the bench want to look good, done. But everything except for that, every single possession, every single move, every single second is incredibly important in a playoff game. So with respect to that, and for game 4, Coach Nurse has to take himself and his self-respect as the coach of these men seriously in order to get the respect of these men he's coaching back. If he doesn't take himself and his job as coach seriously and get on guys, then he's not going to get that respect back. And a guy who's famously like this is legendary San Antonio Spurs coach Greg Popovich. He's now had his Spurs through many different iterations and players in the playoffs for 22 straight years. And he's a hard ass, a famous hard ass. Can also be a super nice guy. He'll cuss you out. He'll put his arm around you. He'll cuss out reporters. He'll leave $5,000 tips at restaurants to people that are nice to him. That's his way. That's his gravitas. Former military man, now after that, getting into coaching and then becoming head coach of the Spurs. And he's a famous hard ass. And from my experiments at manforwars.com and throughout my life and sort of understanding, men in particular, or boys that want to be men in particular, we respect that. We only get in trouble when we're kind of wet noodles with each other, or when we're acting like bitchy, sketchy girls, or we're acting like things are messing us up. We're supposed to be more fashionably messed up than fashionably cool, and making sure we're cool, other people are cool, and where we live is cool. And if you look at everybody that men have ever respected, whether it comes to artists, intellectuals, political leaders, religious figures, they've always made sure they're cool, I'm cool, I can say this to you, the whole world deserves to hear this, or at least my people do. Other people are cool. Part of the reason I'm sharing something is to make sure other people are cool. And where I live is cool. The environment I'm in, work or play or whatever, or, your city or your state or province or country, right? That's everybody that everybody's ever respected has been flexing like that and flexing hard like that. From Bob Marley with Could You Be Loved and Be Loved? Like he's telling everybody else, especially guys out there, because if guys are cool, they can make sure other guys are cool, and women and children are cool. If guys are not cool, then we're just too big and too much of a mess, and nobody can tell us anything. Other guys can't, and then certainly women and children can't, and so we make a mess of everything. So when it comes to Coach Nick Nurse, he's got to think like that and flex like that to get the other guys respecting him, having self-respect, and respecting each other. I know this from somebody who's been some of them in more senior leadership positions in work environments, or even being the lowest man on a totem pole in a work environment. If you're determined to keep your self-respect, other guys will respect that. They'll respect themselves more for doing that with somebody who has self-respect, and you'll communicate better. So with respect to Game 4 of Raptors versus Sixers, Nick Nurse has to be quick with the timeouts to stop runs. He's got to be quick. He can't just be like, well, no, I trust the guys. It's good. They'll work it out. No! I don't trust you right now. I don't trust you. You don't want to play? Go home. It's fine. Did a good job all year. You don't want to play now? Go home. We got 15-man roster. Go home. Kyle Lowry, you don't want to play? Go home. Marc Gasol, you don't want to play? Go home. Go. Watch it on TV if you want. Or if you don't want anything to do with the game because of how you're playing, then go watch a movie. Go watch Avengers Endgame. Go get a nice bite to eat. Right? Go see a play. Toronto's got great theater districts. Or Philly has a great entertainment scene if you're in Philadelphia. Go home. You don't want to play? Go home. It's fine. I'm not mad. I got mad. Got over it. You're useless. Get out of here. Right? He's got to take more of that attitude. You can't just be like, well, I trust the players to figure it out. Because ultimately, if you're in a leadership role and you do that with guys that are screwing around, there's less respect for you. There's less respect for the other players on the team. And so the whole respect infrastructure crumbles. It's like if a father is coaching his son and his son sucks at basketball, and yet the father keeps playing his son and saying, well, no, this and that, making excuses or whatever. The rest of the team is let down, right? It's like you're responsible for making sure we all play well and win, and you're letting that guy screw around? well, then we don't have any trust in you or your plan or your decisions or each other or, the fact that we're doing our best in this game. So it starts with the coach and it works its way on down when it comes to the game itself. When it comes to the organization, ownership, president, whatever, when it comes to the games themselves, it all starts with the head coach and then the leaders of the team captains and veterans, and then the rest of the players to follow suit. So Nick Nurse has to get pissed off. He's got to have a quick whistle. Greg Popovich, the famous San Antonio Spurs coach I just mentioned, he's famously done this. It's been 30 seconds, a minute into a game, regular season game, and he just doesn't like what's going on out there. Popovich calls a quick timeout, 1 minute and 10 seconds into the game. Wow, might be one of the quickest timeouts in NBA history. Yeah, Pop doesn't like what he's seeing out there. And he's like, no, you guys aren't going to suck for 5 minutes. And then, come to the bench all pissed off and grumpy and deflated. No, screw that. Forget it. Just, nope, timeout, done. Timeout, done. Right? So, he's got to do that. He's got to have a really quick whistle when it comes to that. Right? He's got to have a really quick whistle when it comes to the timeout. And he's got to get more pissed off and get his other guys pissed off to get the rest of them going. Take out anybody who's not playing with urgency on every single possession, who's not playing with urgency. Get the guys yelling at each other. Get the guys calling each other out, picking each other up, but calling each other out. Some of the best things that men can do is bust each other's balls and be honest, right? The NBA on TNT with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, and Charles Barkley has those guys honestly busting each other's balls, taking the piss out of each other all the time. And it's the favorite NBA show of millions of people around the world. So when you get the Raptors afraid to yell at each other, afraid to bust each other's balls, afraid to inflate each other's balls, basically afraid to communicate with each other, then that's going to cause a lot of problems. I'd rather see Lowry and Gasol and Kawhi and Pascal and Norm and Fred yelling at each other in an important playoff game than not. Now, the media might take that somewhere. The fans might take that somewhere. It could be misconstrued, but it's only when you're in the argument, only when you're in the situation that you know if you were on some real shit or on some bullshit, right? Somebody could see me and some other guy yelling at each other and think, that's crazy. But if they don't understand the dynamic or they're not close enough to really tell what's going on, then it could be a good thing. I've yelled at a guy in an elevator. Guy's like, it's in the elevator. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, ugh, you don't want to know. Right? He's just like, ugh, he's just a sack of crap near me. Right? And I'm like, I can't put up with this I've got balls. I've got a brain. This is bullshit. Right? So I said to him, F you, I don't want to know. I'm a grown-ass man. I can at least hear it and possibly help. So don't just act like you're a miserable bitch with me. Tell me what the hell's the problem. Right? Because if I'm going to be near you and you're going to look like you have a problem, then that's bad for my balls because I'm impotent and can't do or say shit while you're just a piece of shit near me. Hell no. I can always do or say something. Or at least hear it. Not like, you don't want to know, you'll be a mess. I will not be a mess. Didn't happen to me. It doesn't matter what the hell happened to you. I won't be a mess hearing it. And that'll help, or I could possibly say something to help, right? So he's like, you don't want to know. I yelled at him. He's like, all right, fine, this happened. And he explained this happened, and this guy didn't show up, and this delivery was on time, so that's going to push things back. And he just laid it on me. And I was like, cool, man, I hear you. Sorry about that. Boom. Whatever. Not this you don't want to know shit, right? So for Nick Nurse, no more calm under pressure. No, the guys are really calm. The guys are really cool. We know we're in for a rough series. It's like, no. Losing it. You're losing it. It's the playoffs. It's the second round. Philadelphia has more talent from 1 through 6 than you. You may have more talent from 1 through 10, but when you're only playing 6, 7, 8 guys, then Philly is the more talented team, right? So you got to lose it more as point number 5. And that'll extend to the other guys Because when Nick's going off and he's getting the other guys, and because everybody looks at each other, right? Like, is it safe to do this? Is it cool? Just like at a party where people are kind of nervous and then somebody breaks out dancing like crazy or telling crazy dirty jokes or speaking loud and wilding out. It's like, are we cool with this? I guess we're cool with this. Now let's all go crazy, right? So that starts with Coach Nurse, and it filters down through the rest of the team. Finally, point number 6 is Kawhi Leonard, right? What does Kawhi Leonard have to do? Now, you might think Kawhi's done so much. We load managed him, and he had recovering from a bad injury last year that cost him pretty much the season. And so, we were careful. We try to be cool with him. We hope he doesn't flee the North. We hope he considers the Raptors. And to be perfectly honest, if you look at Kawhi Leonard, when it comes to his public statements, when it comes to his appearance on Serge Ibaka's cooking show, I think Kawhi is treating this the same way he treats just about everything else. He's taking it seriously. He's taking it seriously, right? That doesn't mean he's waffling every day like, well, I don't know. I feel like maybe the Clippers are a good option, but the Warriors have done a good job of building a good team for a while. Brooklyn looks really interesting. I don't think he's thinking about that on a daily basis. You think, well, Kevin Durant might go here, Kyrie. I think, no. I think Kawhi Leonard is doing sort of pretty much exactly what he said. There may be people around him who might be whispering and saying things, and even he may have the odd thought pass through his head. But I think he's basically taken it as seriously as he's supposed to, which is, this year I am with the Toronto Raptors basketball franchise. It is the last year of my last contract. I've got next year where I have an option where I can either opt in to the final year of this deal or I can opt out and sign a new 4 or 5 year max deal, right? Toronto can give me $190 million over 5 years. Another team can give me $140 million over 4 years. And so those are basically my options. But all of that is at the end of the 2018-2019 season. So I'm not going to think about anything else except for being a member of the Toronto Raptors, doing what I have to do, doing what the coach and training staff and the general manager and the team says I should do, getting along great with my teammates, building those bonds and that chemistry and those lifelong relationships, frankly, where we spend a year with somebody, sort of hanging out with them more than you hang out with your own family, especially when you're playing half your games on the road. And so there's some really good, bonds that can develop there. So I think Kawhi Leonard is basically saying, like he said on Serge Ibaka's cooking show, I haven't decided yet. Like, I'm not, what am I doing? I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm thinking about the Toronto Raptors. Thinking about, during the regular season, who we play in the next few days. I'm thinking about watching film. I'm thinking about how I can make the right reads off Marc Gasol passes to cut to the basket. I'm talking about how I can work with Kyle Lowry on a mean pick and roll game to get me some sweet mid-range jumpers. I'm thinking in the playoffs about Game 3 and now Game 4 on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. I am totally focused on what we are doing here as a hard worker and as a leader of this team and as one of the best players in the world, easily top 5. And so, I think he's really thinking about just taking it seriously. Now, that doesn't mean that, he's going to sign after the season, but he's going to take the fact that he took this year with the Toronto Raptors seriously as a factor in his decision. So analogously, it's kind of like if you go, if you're from, say, Canada or America, and you go overseas to South Korea or China or something to teach English for a year, right? You're not just moping, no, I'm not going to take it seriously. No, I'm not going to make any friends. No, I'm not going to, try and go out and hang out with people. No, I'm not going to, I'm going to be back in Canada in a year anyway, or America, or wherever, or Europe, or the West. I'm just teaching in South Korea for a year, just teaching in China for a year. So whatever, who cares? No, you're going to take it super seriously. You're going to be like, nope, I want to take my job seriously. I want to take my family or friends who I have here seriously. I want to make more. I want to take my experiences seriously. What is there to do when I'm in this part of the world? What is there to do in South Korea? Like Kawhi Leonard can go, well, what is there to do in Toronto when it's not too freaking cold to want to go outside, which is happening way too often this year, including into May. That's why we've got to play into June, so we can hopefully finally see some warm weather here and think, well, it's not always this awfully cold and wet and dreary and blah, blah, blah. Because LA is a hell of a lot better when it comes to weather. But the point is, I think he's taking it super seriously, right? That way, at the end, if he decides to go to the LA Clippers, which has been rumored and which I would, bet on is more than likely, just based on lifestyle choice, external factors, being from California, having family in San Diego and a new house there. Even though he's got a house in Toronto, he's worth $100 million. You can buy a few. I would gather that he's probably going to the Clippers, unless Toronto wins a title, in which case he might sign a 2+1 deal or something, right? And even then, he might go, what? I helped you win a title, so now I'm off to the Clippers. It's all good, right? But the point is that I think he's taking it really seriously here in Toronto, so that at the end of the season, he can look Kyle Lowry in the eye. He can look his buddy Serge Ibaka in the eye. Serge Ibaka, who treated him like, hey, I'm original African man from the Congo, from the motherland. I bust your balls. I ask crazy jokes. I say, hey, you going to stay, Kawhi? Please stay. If you don't stay, they might trade the whole team. And I'm used to living here. Please, you have to stay. And Kawhi just laughs it off. Whereas somebody from Canada or America, more raised to be more conservative in our personal relations. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. Don't get political. Make everything political. Don't talk at all. We wouldn't be that forward with Kawhi. And we wouldn't want to be blamed if you're a member of the Raptors team as one of the players or the coaching staff or the rest of the Raptors. You wouldn't want to be blamed for pissing off Kawhi and being one of the reasons that he wants to leave the Raptors franchise and not stay long term. But Serge Ibaka just never looked at it like that. He's just like, no, this is my personality. I am original Mafuzi chef from the African motherland. I bust your balls, Kawhi. You are new here. I will make you feel comfortable by treating you like a buddy, not treating you like somebody I've got to be careful with because you don't talk much and we are all worried about you possibly leaving or being upset. Right? No, he's just, no. So they have a good relationship, Serge Ibaka and Kawhi Leonard, based on the available evidence. And for Kawhi to look Ibaka in the eye, Lowry in the eye, Marc Gasol in the eye, Coach Nurse in the eye, Masai, the president of Raptors basketball operations, or Bobby Webster, the GM, look him in the eye and say, guys, it's been great. I really enjoyed my time here. You and the training staff and medical staff and coaches and players and city and fans have treated me well, and I have tried to reciprocate, and factoring all that in, taking it very, very seriously, I still want to go to LA for a variety of reasons, right? Good franchise with the Clippers, super rich owner, spends whatever it takes to make sure the whole place is great. Great coach, Doc Rivers, won a championship, one of the best motivators, got this underachieving Clipper team to overachieve this year. A lot of those same hardworking players are there. Kawhi fits right in. Lots of great, and LA in terms of just being in California, nice weather, close to extended family and friends and so on. So, but to say that Kawhi Leonard has to take this year seriously, so I think he is doing that. And so that's on Kawhi Leonard. I know there's a lot of concerns out there, but I really think those concerns should be kind of put to the side a bit and say, no, we have guys taking the whole thing seriously under pressure. Like in Game 3, it seemed like they were drifting apart a bit, and there weren't guys to pull them all together from a verbal leadership perspective because the main leaders weren't playing well, so they didn't really feel like talking too much. And then the other players couldn't do it as much, and the coach was sort of running out of options when the team's not playing hard or playing well or making shots. So Game 3 was a bit of a mess. But when it comes to preparing for Game 4, Kawhi's got to do more than average 35, 40 points a game, 5, 10 rebounds a game, few 5 assists a game. He's got to be a playmaker. He's got to be more of a playmaker. A lot of times this year, for a variety of reasons, injuries, load management, couldn't get the whole team together, trades, they haven't played a lot as much together as you might like to build up chemistry, like say the Portland Trailblazers, where Dave and CJ have been together for like 6 years, right? Um, and it's often seemed like there was Kawhi Leonard's offense and the Toronto Raptors offense. The Toronto Raptors offense, all right, got to move here, got to go there, got to this, that, and the other. And the Kawhi Leonard's offense is everybody out of the way, get secondary, get help defenders as far away from Kawhi's one-on-one matchup as possible, spread out, and let him take the guy one-on-one. Very similar to James Harden in Houston, right? And that's fine, and he can do it. Kawhi's an incredible offensive player as well as defensive and very efficient and so on. The problem is it puts your team on your back in a way in saying we got this guy to bail us out and get us a bucket whenever we need one, and that's a great advantage. But it doesn't empower them as much as being a playmaker does. And saying, you know what, I'm going to try this one-on-one stuff or whatever, but I need you guys to be ready to shoot, to shoot, off the double team when I make a pass, or to make some timely cuts, or at least to have more off-ball movement so that the defense isn't set up to stop me, where they know it's Kawhi trying to go one-on-one. Nobody else on the Raptors is supposed to do anything, and so as soon as you know that is supposed to happen, all 3, 4, 5 guys can collapse on the paint and surround Kawhi and make him take a much tougher shot. There's got to be these things where he is more of a playmaker off this. Now he doesn't have to average 10 assists a game. Lowry's got to average that, and he's got to score way more than 10 points. He's got to score 15, 10, plus all the million little things. Gasol's got to score 10, 15 points. Like, we need these guys to actually score a fair bit. But Kawhi's got to play make so that he can show he has the confidence in his other guys. He can get them more involved and make them feel like they're a part of his offensive success. And so he can lead them. Not just be a guy that they can turn to, but a guy they are working with. So Kawhi's got to do a lot more playmaking off the ball, or Kawhi's got to do a lot more playmaking, and he's got to make the playmaking part something that he takes seriously. Now, if he threatens to play make and threatens to kick it out to an open Danny Green for a 3, or to Marc Gasol for a little dump in, a baby hook shot, or short turnaround jumper, or a Kyle Lowry for a 3, or maybe a mid-range, or maybe drive to the bucket, Norm, whoever. If he threatens to do that more, it'll open up more of his one-on-one game for his pull-up mid-range, or even his drives to the basket for layups and dunks, or getting foul calls. But ultimately, it makes the rest of the team feel involved as opposed to just depending on him to do something. It makes them feel like they're part of him doing something, and that's part of leadership. As other players will say, being a good leader is making everybody else better. Being a great player. And they say that's the difference. Greg Popovich has talked about this, and other coaches, where they say to go from a good player to a great player is when you make everybody better. You're not just doing well. You could be a great player, or a very good player, or even a great player. But to go to a really great player, or superstar player, or legendary player, you've got to get everybody else involved. Larry Bird for the Boston Celtics in the 80s. Famous as a scorer, as a great shooter, but people will often talk about how Larry Bird was an incredible passer. Incredible passer. That was his skill. LeBron James, best player of this generation of players over the last 10 years or so. Can score 30 a game, but also can average 7-8 assists, 7-8 rebounds, right? So that is a huge key part of his game. So for Kawhi out there, as key number 6, the playmaking is incredibly key so that he can be a leader of this team, not just the best player on this team, and take this Raptors playoff run really, really seriously. Hopefully he signs long-term for 5 years, $200 million. Here you go, buddy. Easily worth it. One of the best players in the world. But even if he doesn't, it's been a great year to cheer for the Raptors, and hopefully we can make a deep playoff run. So anyway, those were, some simple tips. 6 keys. Get Kyle and Mark going early so they feel confident. They can lead vocally throughout the game. Shoot early in the clock. Give everybody the confidence to. Then get back on defense and rely on your defense. Even if we're not making shots, we know we're going to get stops. And because we have the confidence to shoot, we'll have more energy on D. Play the bench early, make them play at a slower pace, see who's going, see who's not. Don't put so much pressure on them later on and make them worry about losing leads, and make sure the pace is slower so they don't. Take one step back on shots. Philly is a long, physical team, not as fast as you, so if Fred steps back a foot, the fact that he's a foot shorter than most of the guys he's playing against won't be as much of a problem. Danny Pascal as well, little push shot. Coach Nurse, quick timeouts, freak out, man up, act like you're in charge, piss off a couple of guys, but have those guys respect you for what you're trying to do for the benefit of the team, and then get them all doing the same thing with each other. And finally, for Kawhi, great job as an individual player and a good guy, and nothing against him, but get more playmaking involved. Take your teammates more seriously so they take you and your efforts more seriously, and ultimately open the game up for more of your individual efforts anyway as part of this process. So there you have it. Go Raps. Game 4, Sunday, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. That's Sunday, May 5th, 2019. This is BK Black Krishna for manforwars.com. Feel free to comment, subscribe, get in touch with any questions or answers, or financially support. There's PayPal and direct deposit links below. Otherwise, I hope this helps. Go Raps, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.